Hey, we're cooking with gas here. On the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekakkenaf van Jan.
Nebbig.
Ver poepoepoe.
Vermischt.
Verkakt.
Vertutst.
Verstonken.
Fartig.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Hooray! Here we go again. Another Jew-packed episode of American Jew, number 82 today.
Oh, hey, that rhymes, Jordan.
I couldn't believe it. It flowed out nicely, didn't you think?
Very, very nice. Very nice. Well, we hope everybody's having a good new year. Everybody had a sweet Rosh Hashanah. How was yours, Jordan?
Not too bad, I have to say. Had some very nice matzo ball soup that my mom made. Some brisket. Oh, delish.
Sounds good. I got myself some apples and honey and around challah and had some white fish and chopped liver and got my Jew on.
Nice. Yeah, it's all about
Very
the
nice.
the food is consistent. You know, no matter where our allegiances lie on a political spectrum, I am always going to go for the brisket and the matzo ball soup. Consistency is key.
I just love Jewish food. I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah, see, even the people in the street agree. Huh?
Oh, I'm glad. Yes, they're on our side for Jewish food.
Yeah.
I was just talking to some girl on one of these dating apps, and she has a picture of Katz's Deli, and I was like, oh, my God, I love Katz's Deli. That's one of my favorite places. And she's like, oh, I've actually never been. It's just my last name. And I'm like, blasphemy. And she's like, well, I heard mixed things. And I'm like,
Mixed
well,
things?
you heard wrong.
What does that mean,
Yeah.
mixed things?
I know. I'm like, I can't go out with you if you haven't been to Katz's Deli.
I've heard that there are good and bad people on both sides. They're very...
I mean, I would say let's go to Katz's Deli for our first date, but I'm not spending that much money on a girl on a first date.
Especially if it's her first time there. Like, you want to... If you were to, have a momentous occasion like that with her, let's make sure that she's somebody that you already like.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Or at least it's like a second or third date, so I'm definitely getting laid.
Right.
Anyways, I guess this is the worst segue to go into talking about an American Jewish hero.
R.I.P.
who unfortunately
RBG,
passed
everybody.
Over the weekend.
She had a pretty good run.
Ruth Bader Ginsberg has passed away. The second woman ever to be appointed on the Supreme Court and the first Jewish woman ever, too.
Yeah. What's interesting is that, she's done so much for women and for just democracy. I think that, the fact that she's Jewish is almost like buried down the list of things that you would, say about her. Granted, her...
Well, for sure, but it's always good when we have one of our own that's doing so many awesome things, because not only is she a feminist icon, but, she fought for the rights for the LGBTQ community, for undocumented people, for disabled people. She tried to expand voting rights. She was an amazing woman.
Yeah. But I think it's also worth noting that, when you have a name like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, nobody asks if you're Jewish. It's pretty much... That's
true. They knew, and that might have hurt her earlier in her career, but I think she was more stunted by being a woman, actually.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah.
she had an extraordinary life. She's probably one of the best-known Supreme Court justices. Definitely the most beloved.
For sure, one of the most. Even Trump was managed to be genuinely upset to hear of her passing. It seemed he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "I am actually surprised. I am actually sad to hear that," is what he said.
Crazy. We mourn her death. A horrible way to start the new year. Whoever is going to fill her shoes in the Supreme Court, there was some big ass shoes to fill, even though she was a tiny little woman, and. Hopefully they will continue to fight for the same values that RBG, the notorious RBG, did. I
mean, I think it's really interesting that, I think it's, to be such a influential figure and to really feel that love from the society before you go, I mean, she really got to see how appreciated she was. She got to see how much, all of the differences that she was able to make, continuing to take hold with the younger generation. And I think that that's, what we should all hope to strive for, is to, have our ideals be carried forward by a younger generation. And I think that the fact that she got to see that sentiment take hold within her lifetime is a good thing. she's a shining example of the fact that hope exists in the face of adversity.
Absolutely. Rest in peace, Ruth Bader Ginsberg. Sad to see her go, but thrilled that she was alive. And
I'll say this also, and this is a sentiment that I share quite often on my other podcast about grief, but when you talk about death, there's a quote that I heard a number of years ago that says that you die 3 deaths. We die when our physical body dies. We die a second time when the last person who knew us dies. And we die for a final time when the last person who says our name out loud dies. And, I think it's pretty clear that Ruth Bader Ginsberg is going to live a long, long time.
No, absolutely. Hopefully, they want to rename some of these bases that are named after Confederate generals. I think we should name a base after her,
Yeah.
Tear down some of these Confederate statues and let's get an RBG statue going. So we're big fans, very proud to call her one of our own. Now I guess we're going to segue into something we're not so proud about, and that is our bumbling president.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a day when we talk about anti-Semitism and there isn't a necessary reference to Trump in there. But
Absolutely. First of all, he did a rally in Minnesota recently where he was talking about how they have good genes there and, talking about race horse theory. And apparently this is something that Trump believes in, that he has good genes. And he's talked about this many times before. And it's basically, historians are saying that it's basically just mirroring Nazi rhetoric. And eugenics is one of the things that the Nazis used to justify killing millions of people, which is absurd. And Trump's using it to rally up his base.
I mean, he said it last month when he went to visit the Ford factory, talking to the descendants of Henry Ford, like one of the biggest anti-Semites.
American anti-Semites of all time.
Yeah,
it goes down the Anti-Semite Hall of Fame. It's Henry Ford. Built Ford tough.
So it's disappointing to see that he's continuing that same rhetoric. And there's, all these reports that, after he gets off the phone with different people, he ends up muttering something like, these fucking Jews, the Jews, they're only out for themselves. They all stick together and they have a higher loyalty than this country. They're all loyal. They're more loyal
right. Well, this is something that he's said publicly, where he referred to Netanyahu as American Jews leader. This anti-Semitic trope of kind of like dual citizenship, that, American Jews have more of an allegiance to Israel.
It's crazy.
America.
He's playing both sides of the issue too, because he's trying to appeal to Jewish voters by saying, "I love your country," by saying, talking about Israel, and in the same, and then on the other side of that, he's saying, these stupid Jews, they're not going to vote for me because they stick with each other." And it's like,
I think according to the Washington Post article, it's saying that I guess he was talking to some Jewish lawmakers, and when he got off the phone, he said that these Jews stick together,
and they're only in it for themselves. But he's
he's
really like playing both sides of the anti-Semitism coin there.
I don't feel like he's a big friend to the Jewish people. I know he's pro-Israel, but he's in it for himself. I don't, his daughter is Jewish. His son-in-law is Jewish, but the people that he plays to, his supporters, his base, who he loves to incite, are a lot of anti-Semites. A lot of people that don't like Jews. And, of course, the sources who said they heard Trump say this when he got off the phone with some Jewish lawmakers, their names haven't been out. But it's been told that more than one person heard Trump say this.
I mean, we've talked about this before, about how it's weird that Trump he basically boils down the entire Jewish priority to our thoughts about Israel as the only issue that we're Jewish Americans care about in this upcoming election. And that it's really, I mean, it's on the list, but I don't think it's even in the top 5 concerns that I have about what direction our country is going in. I think that there are so many other issues that he should be dealing with versus trying to, the Jewish population in America is not large enough to sway his influence in the election, I don't think.
He's not a good person.
I mean,
if it's not clear, I don't like him.
I'll say this, though, first of all, the Jews are not just out for themselves. I think that, because of the fact that Jews have been basically tried to be stamped out, all across throughout history, we've been persecuted. We have to stick together if we are to remain in existence. There is,
Absolutely, and everyone kind of looks out for their own,
But I think that's why. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, also about how important it is for the Jewish community to support the Black Lives Matter movement and to support, other minorities that are being marginalized. That to stand up for bigotry, stand up against bigotry, stand up for humanity is a Jewish tenet. Like, it's one of the things that is not. I don't think it's exclusive to Judaism. I think it's a part of a lot of the religions. But I think, one of the reasons why we've managed to survive as a people is that we stick together, not just amongst ourselves, but we try to support the idea that other people survive as well. We invite everybody to the table.
Jewish people realize that, Trump isn't really a friend of his. I guess apparently Nixon had similar views and showed support for Israel, but he was still, personally anti-Semitic. I don't think it can be denied that, like, Trump is anti-Semitic. Like, he might admire some Jews. He might not be, like, an absolute anti-Semite. He might not be like Hitler, where he wants to get rid of all Jews. But he's really not a friend to the Jewish people. He's a friend to basically just himself. I wish Trump was Jewish, because you know what? He would have a lot to atone for this year.
Yeah, he would. He would have a lot to atone for. I mean, Yom Kippur is coming up, and this is,
Yom Kippur, the holiest of holy days.
It is, it's part. We acknowledge that there is suffering, and we have to endure the suffering, and we think about the ways that we have made other people suffer.
We were talking about holidays and food earlier. This is kind of a holiday that's not really about food at all. You actually have to fast.
Well,
I mean, I guess there's the break fast and
first
the
of
meal
all,
before.
The fact that it's all about not eating is why it is all about food, for sure. I mean, that is I've often joked that the entire Jewish religion is all centered around the food, and our holiest of days is the one day where we have to starve ourselves to remind ourselves of suffering. It's about not eating.
Okay, so nothing makes a Jew suffer than not eating, is what you're saying, Jordan.
That is what I'm saying. My favorite thing about Yom Kippur, though, is that it comes 1 week after the Jewish New Year. So it is always implied to me that you have, like, that extra week to get some extra sinning in before you have to atone. It's like, we know you're going to party.
I don't really think that's, like, really the way, because on Rosh Hashanah, apparently, God, I guess, puts you in the book of life, and he doesn't seal your fate until until Yom Kippur, excuse me. So I guess it's not really a good time to get that last sinning in for the week.
Oh, is that right? That's like when you're on watch?
I mean, I don't know if you're on watch, but he's making his decision on Yom Kippur. That's the time in between, so you probably don't want to be like, let's go crazy.
But you could be you could be a shitty person the whole rest of the year, but the week between Rosh and Yom, you have to be exemplary, and you'll be okay.
I mean, no, you should never be a shitty person, but this is a time where I guess people do shitty things. It's part of life, and it's a time when you could atone for those things. But I don't think it's like a thing where you could be like, I'm going to just like be horrible, and then I'll fast on Yom Kippur and pray, and it'll be okay. I don't think it doesn't work that way.
I mean, it's sort of like the Santa thing. Parents threaten their kids that Santa's going to bring them coal, but that's only if they're bad. But that's usually only in the lead up to Christmas. Like, that doesn't, they're not. You can't really use Santa as a threat in like January, February. So, when we get close to the Yom, that's when it becomes more like, hey, we're getting there. You better calm it down. He's watching now.
I mean, apparently he's always watching, but on the Yom especially, and like we mentioned, you can't eat or drink anything. You're not supposed to wear leather shoes or apply lotions or creams or wash or even have sex.
Hey.
I guess there's a lot of things that apparently like were happening in like the Garden of Eden, and it wants to like bring us back to a time before we took from the tree and ate the snake, and Eve tempted us, and then we kind of became a little bit impure and cast out into the world. And
is that why is that why we have the apples and honey on the Rosh? It's like, hey, get your last apples in, because once the Yom comes, no more apples for you. Are you going to fast? Do you fast?
I don't plan on fasting, but I feel like what always happens is I end up not eating like all day. I usually eat the night before, Right. I don't do like the 20. Like I usually eat the night before, and then I wake up, and I wake up late anyways. I end up not eating till around sundown, but. I don't care. Like I don't really believe in it.
You fast more like incidentally.
I mean, if it happens, it happens. I feel like I never set out like I'm going to fast this year, but then, sometimes it just so happens that I don't really eat. And then by the end, I'm like, oh, well, I could just wait one more hour. Might as well,
I mean, I feel like there's probably going to be a shorter line at Katz's.
Probably closed. Yom Kippur, a lot of secular Jews, this is the one that they care about. This is the one holiday that they follow. Like, this is it. Like, it's very important. It kicks off with the Kol Nidre ceremony. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, I am.
Well, Kol Nidre apparently was something that even Ruth Bader Ginsberg would participate in.
Oh, yeah?
Is what she cared about. And I guess it has to do with if you make like a commitment or a pledge, like you're supposed to keep it. Apparently it's a big sin if you don't keep it. And Kol Nidre, which by the way is in Aramaic, not in Hebrew, is said to kick up Yom Kippur. And I basically, I guess we're kind of saying we are like preemptively we're proactively annulling ourselves from any like personal or religious like oaths that we took that might put like some sort of prohibition on ourselves to God for the next year.
It's like a religious
so we don't break our vows.
It's like a religious loophole.
So, it's a good thing to keep your word. It's a good thing to keep your vows, but I don't know. It's a little weird, I guess. It's like, hey, sorry, honey. I know I messed up, but I did Kol Nidre, so it didn't really count. I never really made that commitment,
Sorry, not sorry.
So, we hope everybody that does fast has an easy fast and has a nice Yom Kippur, a Day of Atonement, kind of ending the high holidays.
I hope that, even though this is a weird year and we've been able to spend less time with people, that you manage to spread some love and spend some time with family and, reflect upon all the good things that you have in your life to be thankful for.
Absolutely. Part of Yom Kippur is you're supposed to ask forgiveness from God and from anybody that you might have wronged over the year. I mean, my sister hasn't called and asked for forgiveness yet. But anyways, we won't get into it.
Yeah, it's not like Festivus. There's no feats of strength. So only the airing of grievances.
But it is a time, it's like a sad day. It's kind of like the saddest day, right?
It's what they say, yeah. It's one of them. I mean, a lot of the Jewish holidays are all centered around some sort of sadness, but...
Yeah, but Yom Kippur takes the cake.
Yeah. Speaking of taking the cake, I'm so excited for our guest today. Is one of my favorite people, one of my favorite humans, in addition to being one of my favorite Jewish people. Our guest...
I think he's okay.
Well, I'm just
joking. I got a lot of love for him too. I'm very excited to have him on the show.
Yeah, we got Rich.
Can't believe we haven't had him yet.
I know. Can you believe it? We got Rich Aronovitch on the show today, and I could go on. We could start talking about credits and reasons that I love him.
Comedian Rich Aronovitch.
Yeah, let's get him in here. Well, yes, welcome to the show. One of my favorite humans, not just one of my favorite Jews, Rich Aronovitch. Everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome, Rich. Glad you're here. It's good to have this much Jewishness on the show today.
Yeah, it's when are we going to talk about the Holocaust?
It's coming, believe me. Let's open with it. Did you have any relatives in the Holocaust, Rich?
I did. My grandfather and grandmother were survivors out of Vilna, Poland. The story is my grandfather was he was an actor and musician, so he paid off the soldiers to tell him when they were going to invade Poland. And so they told him, and his family refused to leave with him. They didn't believe him. And so he went to go get my grandmother, who he was in love with at the time, or in love with till they died, obviously. And they had dug a ditch. Her family had to dig a ditch, and then they shot everybody dead in the ditch. But my grandmother fell alive and pretended to be dead. So my grandfather waited for her to see if she was dead, and the soldiers got drunk and fell asleep. And then she wasn't dead, so they started running out of Europe, and they would, horrible stories they on top of trains and jump, every time they got caught and they were putting them on the way to the camps, my grandfather would break open the trains and jump, and no one would jump with him. That was one of the biggest things.
Wow.
And my grandmother got pregnant during the war. And she wanted to die, and she's like, that's it, I'm done. Because they were starving. They were starving. And he carried her on his back, literally, and then they had the kid, and a soldier sees the kid and shoots the kid in front of my grandmother. It's all this stuff. I have somewhere her story, and I have to find it. It's in one of those little mini DVDs. But I was thinking of like, putting it out there with a laugh track and clapping like no, but I'm just, that's kind of like one of the things that we really, as a value, is like we would make fun of the Holocaust to my grandmother. Like that's how we deal with pain, is we make fun of it. And that's why it's very hard for me when people get like sensitive. Then I'll go, no, it's therapeutic. You're missing the juice, dude.
Yeah.
You pain and make it funny. It's not painful. It's funny, And I get like Mel Brooks's thing was like, you make fun of the Nazis, you don't make fun of the victims. But I'm like, what if your grandmother's the victim? Can we not say, hey, grandma, don't you think it's weird that my parents are sending me to Jew camp every summer by train? And she would laugh, and like that's sort of like the thing where we were like, our family like likes to make fun of things that are painful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it's crazy to me, but I've heard like people don't know about the Holocaust. Like I was talking to this woman, and she's like, "What's the Holocaust?" She peed on the Holocaust Memorial, and her husband's like, "That's not right." And he's black, and she's like, "What's the Holocaust?" I'm like, "Have you heard of World War II?" Like it's crazy to me.
No, it's absolutely crazy. We were discussing this on the podcast in a past episode, about the recent survey where just young Americans, especially when it comes to Gen Z and millennials, don't have Holocaust information. And that's why we're so appreciative of you to share the story of your grandparents, because, as more and more survivors unfortunately pass away, we really need to keep their stories alive.
Yeah, and that's why I never changed my last name. I have the worst chauvinist name on the planet. ARONOVI what? TCH? I didn't plan it because I'm the only name. I'm a sign of survival of my grandparents, right?
Right.
And And
what's the worst butchering of your name that you've gotten brought up to in comedy?
Please, coming next to this name, Richie Jew.
Really? They didn't even try, huh?
No. Never mind. Yeah, and it's like it's just too many syllables. But I also I can't change it, man. I know Jeff Lipschultz is Jeff Ross, and that's good for him. But I just can't do it, and it's probably not going to help me. But whatever.
Were you brought up very religious, Rich?
Interesting. So grew up born in Canada. Appropriate response. Yeah, no one's ever like, Canadians in the house. No, I was born in Montreal, lived there for 10 months, and I grew up in New Orleans. I grew up where David Duke, for your listeners who don't know, I'm sure you guys both do, he's the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan who got elected to the state representative in the 81st District. That's where I grew up. So I grew up feeling a little different. I'd get off the bus and the three guys wanted to beat me up for killing Jesus. And I'm like, do the math. I'm 10,
right.
And then we'd have Rosh Hashanah and they would throw eggs at our windows. Not Rosh Hashanah, I'm sorry, Passover. And we'd be doing it all of a sudden here. And oh, the neighborhood bullies are throwing eggs at our house.
Wow.
Awesome. And that's why right now it's a very, there's a lot of historical hysteria going on. I'd have teachers at the beginning of the year say, these are the exams that if you do not take them, you cannot make them up. There's no excuse. These are non-excused exams, and you will get a 0 on your grade. And then you look at the dates, you're like, oh, that's Rosh Hashanah. That's Yom Kippur, and that's Passover. That's a weird coincidence
Wow.
It's not even subtle.
It's funny, Rich, because we've been asking all our guests if they've experienced anti-Semitism, and for the most part, everybody's been a big fat no, and you've just told us about, so many instances that you've experienced with anti-Semitism, and, I mean, doesn't seem like it's so easy for the Jews in the Big Easy.
Well, it's everywhere. I was in Plattsburgh. This is probably maybe 10 years ago. Plattsburgh is right by the border of Canada.
Okay.
And a guy in a beard and suspenders stood up in the middle of my act and went, "Kill the Jew." I'm like, I don't hear the plural. I'm hearing singular. The Jew, not the Jews, the Jew. And I made fun of it, and luckily it wasn't one of those, yeah, let's kill the Jew. It didn't become that. But I went on stage right before the pandemic in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. And when I got on stage, they were visibly upset at my ethnic appearance.
Really?
They literally started
Jeez.
I mean, there wasn't a doubt of where this district swayed. They were visibly upset at my ethnic appearance, which I addressed, and I made the mistake of kind of dipping into a little bit of the politics, and then I have a way of getting out of it. But this was like, everyone's loving me. Everyone's loving me. Look, we're having a big problem.
Yeah, it is a big problem, Rich.
Well, I mean, listen, we worked together a lot when we were working down in Virginia Beach. And, I learned pretty quickly that my Jewish material didn't work down there. Didn't stop me from doing it, but I don't know if I felt that much overt anti-Semitism there. The one instance that I realized that there weren't any Jews there was when I was in the bar next door and a guy asked me if I was his Aryan brother.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. You buying?
Yeah. There's nothing.
What, was he blind, this guy? I don't understand.
Like, how Jewish?
Right? I was like
well, he is a Nazi, but it's a free drink.
Well, I also felt like I remember in one show where I talked about being Jewish, and a woman in the front row was like, "Really?" It was like an exotic thing to her. She was like, "Oh my God!" And I remember saying, like, "Yeah."
Can I touch you?
I was like, "I look good without the horns, huh? I had them taken off last summer. None of my hats would fit."
I've had people ask me about the horns. I'm like, that's why I have big hair, to hide them.
Yeah.
I had a guy. I was selling merch in Tennessee. And keep in mind, this is not just the flyover states, as my sister calls it. This is all over, the whole country. This is the whole country. So I'm selling merch, and his wife goes, "Pay the man," and he goes, "He already had his Jew hand out for it." I was like, "Actually, sir, it's a Jew claw." But he literally said Jew hand, and I've even heard the expression from somebody who is woke say, "Yeah, we Jewed him down to," like, it's a common thing to say Jew down. Now, I just said, like, look, I just explained to her. I said, look, if you're someone who's super sensitive about that, that's a really not I would say I'm not offended by it, but it is offensive to say Jew down because, we're
absolutely.
I mean, the other thing is, like, because I grew up where real anti-Semitism exists, and then when I moved to New York, and I was waiting tables across from Lincoln Center, which is like kind of the stereotype of the northeastern Jewish person with, like, here's a quote: "I want a grilled salmon with no grill marks." Okay? So what do you want, a floating fucking fish? So anyway, and I used to do a joke like, "Oh, Hitler was a waiter at the restaurant I used to work at." Because I actually became not anti-Semitic, but I understand the complaints. Yeah. I had a woman reach out to me. "You're very talented." You can hear the actor. "You're very talented, but I think you would." And I go, "Do you realize you're complaining to me about making fun of Jews for complaining? Do you understand the irony?" And there's a lot of, like, look, there's a lot of I don't know if it's money, but there's an entitlement thing that goes on. There's a lack of empathy for the human experience. Like, I think everyone should have to have a waiting tables job or a job where you can look at someone and not say, "the hell." You won't be snapping at people if you've done this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I understood. I was like, oh my God, now I get why people hate us. We come off as entitled. We tip like shit. And now these are sweeping stereotypes. Some of these people, like there was the Solomons. The Solomons came in every Sunday night, and they tipped great. And Howard Stern always tipped 50% of the bill. Like, if it was bad service, good service. If it was $200, you got a $100 tip, no matter what. That was his deal, right? And he's a Jewish guy, So it's different, for people. I believe people who have gone through the experience of waiting tables or having to claw their way to the top. Like, I know, God forbid I ever hit the fame lottery, I will be very good to people because I've clawed my way to the top. You know what I mean? We know what it's like to do, hey, I got a great show in a well. You got to bring your own bucket. You know what I mean? Like,
I think I've done that show. I have done that show.
Yeah. I know what it's like to tour with somebody who's crazy and tour with somebody who's good. I know the difference, and I know the long-term effects and how you get better results with honey than you do with bees. But I see why, I think it's shtetl mentality. So when you grow up in these pockets in the Northeast where there's only Jews and you're not aware of anti-Semitism, you're not aware of like, hey, you should tip more than the minimum. You should treat people well. It's not all about, you, and it's troubling to me. It bothers me. I want to take I want to give classes on like how to be a human in society.
Yeah. That's the one thing that's missing from this country, I think, is how to be a fucking human.
And it's also like asking people with no legs to run a marathon. Like, people just don't know, man. They don't know. That's why I'm like, hey, look, wait tables for a couple of months, and you'll have a different experience when you. Every time I talk to deal with the waiter, I have a different experience because I've been that person. I know when you're having a shit day and you got to be like, hey, and you're a servant. It's like, it's demeaning, but it is what.
Well,
yeah.
Definitely you should be kind to your wait staff, be kind to anybody in the service industry, whether you're a Jewish person or an anti-Semite. There's no reason to be a dick, and manners go a long way.
I mean, the irony, though, I mean, you have to appreciate a little bit of that irony of, like, growing up in the South where you're the only Jew and you're hated, and then you come to New York where they're all the Jews, and you're like, all right, I see. I hate these Jews. I hate.
Yeah, I got over it. I'm working on it. But I have issues with the entitled Northeastern, or not even Northeastern, just the entitled people. I don't understand. And it's not that they just don't. They're not aware. They're not aware. They're asleep. They walk through the world asleep. I mean, God, I've done. I have a joke about like, how sometimes I do these condo associations in South Florida. You know how Jews laugh, right?
Rich is making a silly face, by the way.
Right.
They can only hear you, Rich. But
I'm sorry. Oh, I thought, okay. They're making a face like they just ate like a turd sandwich. So, and then I finish. They're staring at me like I'm trying to harm their puppy for an hour. Like literally staring at me, a tickle of laughter every now and again. And the whole time I'm going, "You're bombing. Don't make mention of it. You're bombing. Don't make mention of it. You're bombing. Don't make mention of it. Stick to the script. So I get through it. I finish, and I get a standing ovation. I go to the woman after that was paying me, and I said, she said, "Oh, my God, you did wonderful." I go, "How could you tell?" She goes, "Nobody left."
Oh,
wow. That is a good sign of success, I guess. You didn't walk the room, Rich. Wow.
We're the
bar low.
That's who we are. We leave. Ugh.
Do you think I could get that gig? Is that? I mean, they pay you no matter whether or not people leave or not. I think that's great.
Yeah, how'd you get that? Two comics talking. One goes, "I just got diagnosed with shingles." The other one goes, "How'd you get that?"
So, Rich, how involved are you in Judaism these days?
I have a spiritual belief, which I don't really know what that is. I just know, like, I just want to be a good person to be a good person. I want to do things. My problem is I'm cursed with being aware. So when I start looking at things, I start getting very angry. So when I look at religious people, I have a hard time with religious people. And it's my own intolerance and hypocrisy that I'm suffering from, right? So there are lots of great religious people. But what I see is in Israel is having a huge spike. One of the big reasons is religious people refuse to follow the rules. Same thing in Brooklyn. I'm looking at the
same thing in New York right now. They're talking about that, especially with the high holidays.
You fuckheads. This is even if you looked at the minutia of Judaism would tell you to isolate and wait for you fucks.
Yeah.
But it's all about money, property, and prestige. It's all about the things that are not God. The humans took a beautiful thing and fucked it all up. Because
just because they don't care about the outside world doesn't mean the outside world isn't paying attention to what they do. And that reflects, unfortunately, poorly on all Jewish people.
Correct. Because it's easy to go like, all cops are bad, right? No, not all cops are bad. There's a lot of shitty cops. We know that. There are a lot of good cops. We don't know that because we don't look at that. There are a lot of we like to group people in these things, right? We like to put them in these boxes and not look at the bigger picture. Like, yeah, man, it sucks when you're like that. And then you have like And then you look at here's like when there was a shooting in a mosque and the synagogue was like, would you like to use our facility to pray? And you're going, oh shit, there's some hope.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some love. That's
we
what
need some more of that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what it's about. So, for me, Judaism, it's a struggle, right? Because I go back and forth. Like I went to Israel for a year. I was involved because of negative experiences, right? So all this anti-Semitism pushed me into my identity. That's why it doesn't make sense to say like, hey, if you're a Trump supporter, you're deplorable. You're only motivating your base. Not a smart thing. You know what I mean? When you call me you call the liberals hey, you snowtard, you lay crying them liberal tears. You're only motivating that base, right? So it's not a smart move. The only way to diffuse those kind of things is to love the thing that you hate, right? So I went to hear Elie Wiesel speak when I was 16 in Baton Rouge, and there was all these people saying the Holocaust never happened and denial and this thing. And the first thing he said was, you have to love those people more than you love your family. It's the only answer to hate. It's the only answer to love. You're going, here's a guy who watched, I don't know if your listeners are aware, he wrote the book Night, which is about his experience at Auschwitz, right?
Yeah.
And he's saying, love people that denied his experience. I just think like it's very hard to get there. But for me, I teeter, right? Like what I love is like when I'm with my family and we're doing things together, I'm like, oh, this shit's really nice. When I think of my childhood, my dad used to his dad died and we got very religious. We got kosher in the house and Friday night services. And it was like, all of a sudden I'm like 8 years old and now we're religious. And I'm like, when I think about it, I go like, the ritual of that stuff is beautiful. Sitting around with my family, reading their stories about the Talmud or the Midrash, I think they call them, and then we talk about it as a family. Like, that's family time. The religious stuff, I don't remember any details about it, but he's like, well, this is, and then you kind of go oh, here's a cool thing. Like, I don't need a list of morality to know hey, I don't,
we don't need a book to tell us the difference between wrong and right.
Yes, and there are nuances, right? So some people think euthanasia is a very interesting thing, or you're donating your organs. Of course, you should donate your organs. Not according to Judaism. Desecration of the body. You're not supposed to do that. And right. I'm like, fuck that. Or how about how Judaism looks at homosexuality? It's fucking wrong. It's immoral how Judaism works on this day. If we know that there are gay birds and gay dogs, that means God created gay. We're not saying choice or not choice, not my business. You're gay. I love you unconditionally. I am not going to play God. I'm going to accept what God put in this world and say, hey, not my job to be execution and judge and jury. And it's my biggest problem with the idea, if you don't believe in our name brand of religion, you're going to hell. Don't think that's what spread the word meant. But some humans got involved, and what's the whole beginning of all religion is to take your clan and procreate it and keep it surviving. Because everyone at the beginning was trying to survive their clan, which is what Judaism is brilliant about, is they go, you have to live around the synagogue. We now have our own neighborhoods. You got to have special schools. We're now going to school together. You have to eat in special restaurants. So we're now eating together. Our kids are going together, and we're living together. What do we have? We have community. What's stronger than the individual? Community. Therefore, we're a survival people because we've learned to become a survival tribe, a community. And you look at other, I don't want to get into specifics, but for example, one of the things that I feel historically is not fair, it's when we're not even playing fields. When people say, well, the Jews, we were slaves and we had a lot of anti-Semitism, we're surviving. Yeah, we weren't ripped out of rivaling, warring tribes, thrown on a ship, brought to this country against our will, completely taken away from our families, denied the ability to get education, and then all of a sudden you're wondering, well, are there any repercussions and historical reasons why we're having a system that is denying the accessibility to education, which is the only way out of all of this stuff? That's trickle-down economics, motherfucker. That's the real deal. Look at Costa Rica. They traded their military. Instead, they said, we're going to spend all that money on education. And as a result, they have the highest economic growth out of all of those countries. They have the lowest crime rate. They're the most all these positive things. Because
and some of the best ziplining in the world.
And some of the best ziplining in the world. Education. Oh, I want more pepper on my salad. 10%. So,
Well, I hear you, Rich, because I felt like one of the things that turned me off to Judaism growing up were Jews, the other Jews, the judgment from other Jews, the way they spoke to me, the way I saw them acting. I didn't like it, and I didn't like, I don't care. You're following something in the Bible, follow what's right. It doesn't matter what some book that was written so long ago that who knows, where its true origins come from, and you're going to dedicate your life to that while right in front of you, you could tell, hate is bad. It doesn't matter if somebody's gay or different of a different religion or anything.
Arab descent. I mean, Semitic.
Or of Arab descent. We talk about the plight of the Palestinian all the time. I mean, the Bible says, love thy neighbor like, they're your own. But apparently that doesn't count when it comes to Palestinian people.
Well, there's a new look. I spent a year there. My father is he's super. He's Israeli. And I say, look, there are two sides to this coin. There are nuances. The Palestinians are treated like shit by the world, not just by Jews, but by the world, by Arabs. They're treated awfully. There is a lot of, well, we did this. Why didn't they do that? They did this. They did that. There is like they did elect a group that says if you martyr yourself in the name of religion, we financially take care of your family for life. Right? That's something that has to change in order to have a conversation about how can we be a free-flowing economic thing. Just because Jews treat them better than their own people treat them does not mean that we treat them well. Right? We do give them the right. We do give them the right to vote. We do give them, they're not. It's not illegal to be a but they do, and it's all coming from fear, right? Like I was in a terrorist attack when I was in Israel, right? What does that do to the mentality? That means every time I saw someone with a religious outfit who was Arab, I was afraid of them, thus I was angry with them, thus I was shitty in my mind to them. You know what I mean? And that's...
That really sums up what a lot of the Israeli people are like and what they feel and what their attitude is because of that, Rich.
Yeah, but you have to also understand there's a flip side to that coin. It's not just them. There are... You are talking about like I was there when the peace process happened with Rabin, right? And so all of the money that was meant to go into structures like hospitals and education and those kind of things, they were used for building means for more terrorism. So as a Jew, as a Zionist, you're going, wait a minute, why are we? And the negotiation was like, if you can clamp down our number one issue, which is terrorism, you're going to get more land. That's the whole deal. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's like no country wins war and land and gives it back, except for Israel, right? They won war in 48, 67, 73, 81, 91. They keep winning, but the problem is that they trying to do things to create a peaceful thing. I understand if you are, like right now they have a horrible prime minister who doesn't understand, like, stop with the fucking settlements, you moron. Let's try to get to a place where we both can negotiate and say, look, we're going to stop this. You deserve to have a strip of peaceful land where we can able to get in that, but it's not a one-sided issue. It's nuanced.
It's definitely not a one-sided issue, and it's it's not only Israel that's bad, but Israel has done some shitty things and some wrong things. And
right.
I feel like Israel's the one. Israel needs to step up. While, of course, other Arab nations need to step up and other people, I feel like Israel, representing the Jewish people, really has to set an example.
Sure. Now, if you have a kid who's in the army, because they all go to the army, and your kid is threatened, how are you going to treat the person that is potentially trying to kill your kid?
That's how the Palestinians feel. There's the flip side to that is exactly the same thing. And if you're a Palestinian person and you're watching family members getting tortured by Israelis, or you're seeing people get killed by Israeli people, you're gonna hate all Israeli people, and they're the ones that are being oppressed. It's like we can't.
Jonathan, let me back this up for a second. Israel does have a unit that is designed to go into anywhere that they're going to attack. They go in to clear out women and children and civilians. They also flyer areas that they plan on bombing, saying we are looking for this person, evacuate the area. They're not clean, But they do the only army in the world that does try to limit civilian casualties. They also, I'm not saying that their hands are completely clean, and I'm not.
They do try to limit it. They're not so horrible, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that in 1948, the way they went of kicking the Palestinians off their land and some of the atrocities they committed to them wasn't kosher. For lack of a better word.
Let's look at the facts. The facts are the UN gave them what was now Gaza. They didn't ask for war. They were attacked and outnumbered 11-1, and they won. So they won land in war. Now name a country that wins land in war and gives it back. You can't, because it doesn't exist. So then in 1967, they're out.
Because we're not history experts.
Well, I am, apparently.
That's right.
Apparently, he was like, definitive, it doesn't exist.
Right. So then in 1967, the outnumbered and the power of what Israel was going to be wiped off the map in 1967. They were outnumbered, and they were shipping women and children out of the country because they go, there's no way we're going to win this war. Right? They won in 1967, and then what was considered a military genius, a modern miracle, whatever you want to see it. They won that land, and then what they did is they won land, and they gave back. They went all the way, and they gave back land. They said, all right, we're going to give you back this. We'll give you back this. And then in 1973, during Yom Kippur, they got attacked. They won that land. So it's a consistency of like, they didn't they got attacked and they won. They got attacked and they won. They didn't say they didn't say, nobody wants Gaza. Gaza is not a good piece of land. There's no resources. It's not a good piece of land. The UN said, we feel bad about the Holocaust. The Jews need a safe place because the world abandoned you. We're voting on this, and we're going to give you a piece of land nobody wants. They were living in peaceful coexistence with Palestinians for years till the British came in and fucked everything up. Yeah. And they said, oh, this is now this, and it's called the British Mandate. So the narrative of like, oh, they're this big apartheid state, they were attacked and defended their borders and their land. Does things get fucked up? Absolutely. Are there atrocities on both sides? Absolutely. But they are not an apartheid state. They are not this big, powerful, economically huge America, England. I mean, how come our Chief Justice isn't Chief Justice? Why don't we give back America to the Native Americans? We stole the fucking land.
I mean, absolutely, and that's an argument that gets put forward a lot, but I just feel like when human beings evolved, our kind of morality, our conscience evolved from the time of when, we came here to America and took the land from the Indians, and when that happened in 1948. And there are many places that they are giving land back to Native Americans.
The UN did a thing called a UN Partition Plan of 47 and voted, said, we are going to take this neutral strip of land that is controlled by the British, not by the Palestinians, and we're giving it to a people who just survived the Holocaust. There's no discussion of Palestinian land if there was not an attack by the Arab nation.
Right.
Many of the Arab nations aren't friends with the Palestinian people either. And hey, I'm not saying Israel is the only bad guy, but I'm just saying Israel isn't the good guy.
Why are they not the good? Like, I understand I don't understand why they're not the good guy in your scenario. Unless
the UN still considers a lot of their settlements illegal. The UN still considers there to be an occupation there. So the UN may have given Israel, even though it seemed like they made promises to a lot of people, and kind of a lot of these Israelis or future Israelis went and they kind of took the land.
I guess Israel would be like sort of like, like the anti-hero, like the Punisher. You might not agree with his methods.
Look at George is so nice. He's trying to keep it light.
Yeah.
trying to cross talk.
Well, no, we appreciate your perspective, Rich, and obviously, having an Israeli father and spending so much time in Israel, you have one that should be heard.
Well, as we wrap, though, let's we do try to end on a little bit of a lighter note, kind of.
We like to ask our guests a couple questions. What's your favorite Jewish holiday, Rich?
Yom Ha'atzmaut. I'm kidding. I think actually Havdalah is one of my favorite Jewish holidays.
Havdalah is just but it's just a custom. It's not like a holiday.
It's not?
No, Havdalah is what you do to end the Shabbat.
Yeah, I mean, with the whole candle and the smelling the spice, so you have a good week and and then you drink the wine a sweet week. There's
Okay, all right. We usually go with a holiday, but this is your favorite Jewish
Well,
tradition.
actually,
that's a good one.
No, and I'll say this: when we spoke to Danny Lobel, he described Shabbat as having a weekly holiday with your loved ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's considered a big deal. I mean, I do like that whole. I do love Passover because it's like my father and my whole family gets together and he tells the story of it and we laugh a lot and there's a lot of those songs that we do together. My problem is it's like hard for me to be like, oh, like I get fighty in my head. So I'm like, you mean this loving, unconditional loving God is putting boils on people and frogs and vermin and killing cattle? And
Yes, I will have another glass of wine, please.
Yeah,
That's why you need to drink so much, I guess.
yeah, I mean,
To stomach it all.
but I do love the story of survival and I do love Passover. So I'll go with Passover,
Okay, all right.
even though I have to look up now Havdalah's
It's not a holiday. It's just like it's how you end Shabbat. You know, I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast, but what my father used to do with Havdalah is he used to take the leftover wine that like gets spilled over into like the saucer, and he would put the candle out in it, and then he would put both his pinky fingers in it, and he'd be like, "See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil," and make a lot of money. And he'd put his fingers in his pocket.
Okay.
What's your favorite Jewish food?
Matzo ball soup, or I do love a good challah, but matzo ball soup I'm going to go with. I do love. There's a lot actually, and that's because it's like nostalgic.
Yeah.
But I'll go with matzo ball soup.
Who's your favorite Jew of all time?
My favorite Jew. I'm not going to say Sammy Davis Jr. because I know everyone. My favorite Jew of all time, maybe Mel Brooks. I have to think about that one. I kind of want to say my nephew, but niece, but that's not really fair. I'm a little tainted.
Well, I mean, it can be. It's a personal opinion, and it doesn't have to be somebody famous. I think last week the person that we asked, mentioned a rabbi that they had that was inspiring to them. So it doesn't. It's a.
How great would it be if I was like Jesus?
Hey, he was one of us.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's a hard one.
An indecisive Jew? Forget about it.
I know. I'm like having debates in my head. Should I say Elie Wiesel?
It's easier to think of my least favorite than my favorite. I think.
Right. My grandfathers. We'll go with that. That's
okay. That's a nice answer. We appreciate you sharing the stories with us about his tribulations during the Holocaust.
Yeah, and it's great to see you, buddy. I'm happy that we got a chance to hang out a little bit.
Is there anything you want to plug, Rich?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Facebook and Instagram, and I guess now TikTok, although I thought that was sold, and Twitter. And you can find me by going to Rich is Funny. It's one word. On all my social media, just look up Rich is Funny, one word. I always say, because my last name is Aronovitch, which is Polish for, hey, look, there's a Jew. But, ladies, you know what they say, once you go Jew, your credit's okay. Rich is Funny, that's it. Or richisfunny.com, and that's where you find me.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
You guys are...
We're gonna talk a little bit more with Rich. If you want to hear it, then you got to subscribe to our Patreon.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Hey, that's a wrap for episode 82. We hope you have a great Yom Kippur. I don't know if you can have a great
Have
Yom
an
Kippur,
easy fast is what you're supposed to say. Mine's going to be fine because I don't fast. I'm going to end up eating, so I'll be fine.
Okay, well that's good, Jordan.
Yeah.
You I like it. You're like, there's no way the fast is going to happen. I'm a little more like maybe. Nevertheless, we got our Patreon going right now. It's Patreon, / American Jew. Check us out. Subscribe. You're going to get a lot of awesome content. Email us at AmericanJewPodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at American Jew Podcast. You can follow me on all social media at Jonathan Randall.
You could always find me on the interwebs at Beatnik Nudnik. And oh boy, this was a fun one. Thanks for listening, guys. And we'll have more Jewtastic entertainment next week.
Vote for Joe Biden.